So Thursday cooking. I'm gonna sort some stuff out now and put onto the fire. Oh. Right? A-P-R-I-L. A-P-R-I-L. R-I-L. Me, June. Yes, guys, welcome to my live at the moment. Just gonna put the pot on the fire. guys. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Pick up yourself down here. B-O. No, about E-A-L. Yeah, E-A-L-L. I think we're born here. W-I-L-L. Slip, S-L-I-P. Okay. Shit, my boy. There's a fox. Fox. Fox, F-O-X. Box kasi R block. Eh? Box sa BOX. color black or black, building black. If a color black a BLA, BLO.
Whether you're a newbie or a tech whiz, Amazon has you covered, no matter what you're into. From tablets to gadgets, your tech, your way. Everything you need, all in one place, on Amazon. Amazon brings the UEFA Champions League. Tuesday's unmissable match is on Prime.
Say all the things you want to watch in one place. Download the IMTV app to start your watch list and find your next favourite.
My advice would always just be push the boundaries, work as hard as you can, because there's no substitute for hard work.
Giving something a go is never a bad thing. It's that stability to see that you can kind of conquer any problem, so just believe that you can actually conquer them all, and you'll be fine.
If something happens, something goes wrong, yeah, it's a lot worse.
Kaya nag-class, pumuntahan well na ako.
4 places in the World Cup that remain for European teams. There are also 2 more for the continental playoffs, but we'll keep it simple for now. These 4 teams will be determined by the 8 semi-finals that take place later. They're all 7:45 kickoffs, apart from that first one between Turkey and Romania. The Republic of Ireland, they're also playing there in Prague to take on the Czech Republic. You can follow Wales' match against Bosnia on 5-9 this evening. A late goal at Old Trafford last night, but a huge dent in Manchester United's hopes of reaching the semi-finals of the Women's Champions League. The quarter-finals, the furthest no women have been in the tournament so far, but after the home side twice came from behind, Bayern Munich then scored in the 84th minute to take a 3-2 lead into the return leg in Germany next week.
We're in a tie, and that's what Bayern will be very aware we're in a tie. I think you could see on the sideline they found difficulty with the way that we played. Felt we were really aggressive with the ball. So next time when we play them, we have to go and take the same attitude, but now close up those chances so that they can't create easy chances against us.
Chelsea Alejandro Garnacho has been ordered to pay more than £1,000 and issued with 3 penalty points on his driving licence after being convicted of speeding. Garnacho was caught driving at 50 miles an hour by a speed camera in a 40 zone outside of his previous club, Manchester United's training ground, just days before his £40 million move to Chelsea in August. His lawyers issued an apology on his behalf in court, saying he was embarrassed by it. The International Olympic Committee has announced that the women's events, both individual and team, at any Olympic Games will be limited to biological females. The announcement has been made in the last few minutes. The IOC saying the policy is applicable for the LA 2028 Games onwards, claiming it is evidence-based and expert-informed and protects fairness, safety and integrity in the female category. Determination of eligibility will be made by a one-time gene screening, and it will not be applied to any grassroots or recreational sports programs. Max Verstappen refused to undertake a media session at the Japanese Grand Prix this morning until a British journalist had been removed, saying, "I'm not speaking before he leaves." The Dutch driver told Giles Richards of The Guardian to get out 3 times before eventually starting his roundtable with members of the pro media at Suzuka. The reason he gave was still being angry at a question asked to him by Richards at last December's Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton says Formula 1 is much more fun than at any other time in his career after sweeping changes in the sport's regulations came into effect this season. The 7-time world champion had a multi-lap battle with his Ferrari teammate Charles Leclerc, at the end of which he prevailed to claim his first podium with his relatively new team. The race was won by Kylian Antonelli, the second youngest driver to win a Formula 1 Grand Prix.
I've been enjoying the moment. It's been good fun, and but at the same time, just move the focus very quickly onto this weekend, because obviously, China was incredible. Winning Shanghai was probably the best day of my life so far. So but we still got 20 races left. So just wanna keep the momentum going, and hopefully we can achieve something great this weekend as well.
Yet another meeting between Arina Sabalenka and Elena Rybakina in the Miami Open semi-finals. The two sitting at 1 win apiece from their high-profile finals so far this year. Sabalenka beat America's Hailey Baptiste in straight sets to reach the last 4. Will play Rybakina, who lost to her in the Australian Open final, she then beat to win the trophy at Indian Wells last week. Rybakina in 3 sets beat another American, Jessica Pegula, in the quarterfinals in Florida. Meanwhile, one side of the men's tour in Miami is very much opened up after a shot defeat Carlos Alcaraz, and Arthur Fils is one to take advantage. The Frenchman beat Tommy Paul to reach the semi-finals when he'll play Yuri.
Yo, family, what go on? You know what I say? Jerk Thursday, so jerk chicken and jerk wings and jerk pork as well, and hot food and brown stew pork. A Thursday that is special for today. So that's on the menu. Fried chicken, jerk chicken, fried chicken, So at the moment.
Is being adopted as official national trail. The walk stretches 190 miles from Leeds Head in Cumbria to Bay
Day in North Yorkshire, taking in 3 national park points for it. And England's correspondent Danny Savage has been following in Wainwright's pace.
In a village on the west coast of Cumbria is the beginning of a very long walk. One that has become so popular, it's now been made into a national trail. The locals here are delighted.
It's got cultures of historical interest, it's got challenge but not too challenging. And I think by having a definite start and finish at 2 beaches, it feels it's very complete.
It is here where, if it's safe to do so, you should dip your boots in the Irish Sea before heading eastwards to the North Sea. The first few days are a traverse of the Lake District. These are probably the hardest yards, although a lot of work has been done to make it easier, like thousands of flat stones to tackle erosion from all those boots from around the world.
The Coast to Coast has got an international appeal, so whenever you're out and about, you're introduced to live working somewhere from all across the globe from North Sea. And it's the best, it's showcasing the best of the UK.
It was the famous spell walker Alfred Wainwright who created the walk over 50 years ago. He wrote the definitive guidebook from west to east.
And it seems to be the natural way. I mean, if you're reading a book, or if you're writing a book, you're working from west to east. And that's why it was on the map.
And in a nod to Alfred Wainwright, his initials are on every single one of the new signposts. Accessibility has been improved too, with new gates and bridges.
Well, I'm in Wainwright's shoes, it's really special. He might have walked in boots on a real long river. But I love it. And it is really special, coast to coast. It was one of the walks I wanted to do before I unfortunately can't walk very well anymore. So just to be able to do it, it's really special.
Seems so much more. Mark has walked the coast to coast 9 times. He's a guide and loves the variety of landscape.
You start off with, 2 weeks first, you've got good friends, and it's all about those experiences when you reach the North Sea, and it's really emotional, there's people in tears, and it's really, quite a fantastic experience. Please get out, come back, and then they basically meet again and stay over, and it then draws people back to town again to live in this part of the world.
After crossing the Northfield Falls, the journey ends in Spraggabenzeny Thursday, at the bottom of a steep road outside the bar of the Bay Hotel.
If you've not done your part, you've not finished the walk.
Brian says the trail is now a vital part of the local economy.
Because of where the economy is at the moment, now an increase in football like that will be very welcome, and then post-COVID, a lot more coming. And this is, I think this is going to be very welcome.
And of course, the final steps of this coast-to-coast journey are down to the seashore.
To dip your boots into the water at the far end of the trail. Danny Savage, BBC News, on the Coast to Coast walk.
Now, when a family left their grandma's funeral to be greeted by an incredibly kind lollipop man, they put a call out on social media to find out who he was so they could thank him properly. After a huge response, it turned out they weren't the only ones wanting to celebrate in Jamaica.
Come on, have a lollipop. Hey, take care.
Let me put this on.
This is the lollipop man story. He's here to do a story about cats and babies.
Morning.
Lydia, he's amazing.
Morning. Come on.
He's absolutely amazing. He makes everybody's morning just so much more fulfilling.
His energy.
Crazy, isn't it? He's just full of life. I love you. My daughter always used to be quite sad being dropped off at school. And when he started, she used to run across the bar to high five.
Any exams today? Yeah. Community integrate buildings and parks, include people. We really get to you about our community.
There is so much love being involved to this man.
Morning, sir.
And about to find out just how much
when he comes in to assembly,
When this photo was posted on social media recently, hundreds of people commented.
When you saw that Facebook post, it was very crazy. There was lots and lots of messages, and then we had the staff WhatsApp group as well going, oh my goodness, have you all seen what's going on? Oh, yeah, look at this. I saw the post on Facebook, and I automatically thought, gosh, that man is so kind.
He always wakes me up in the morning and he always gives me a high five when I walk to school. That photo was posted by Hannah. It showed her family knitting in as they left their nan's funeral and had taken the time to cheer up her niece and nephew. She wanted to say thank you.
It brought such light to the doctor.
We just thought as a school, we need to do something to celebrate Ian because he's so fabulous.
Good morning.
Do you think that Ian deserves one of our outstanding award battles?
That motto, that song, we need a reminder to be kind. This is your motto.
It is, yes. I love the smiles and
These kind of messages go well in the pandemic. People made a window to school life in process. And they was in Ian.
it's a good life out there if you just enhance it, just embrace it.
Keep smiling.
Get smiling, that's the one.
Always try for you, my friend. Hey, have a great day.
The way that we can make a difference in somebody's life without doing anything special, just being kind. He shows our children the difference that we can make.
Please, I'd just like to say, I really can't thank you. But I'm only as good as you are. I have a great time every single day with your kids. And I get out of bed in the morning, and it's not a job. I couldn't see all my things. Kids, thank you so much.
If we could take one thing away from the assembly, getting more in.
We can all be more good.
100%. Not all heroes wear capes. Sometimes they just wear a smile.
It is honestly the best thing I've ever done.
Jamaica could be easy news.
Oh, lovely. And you just know that Ian will be out helping people, whatever the weather. It has been pretty wet recently, hasn't it, Helen? I was going to say, this morning it's been freezing. We had frost, didn't we? And the sunshine, and it's all changed now. So this was Portsmouth just an hour or so ago. So the sunshine's hanging on in eastern areas at the moment. So, but the clouds now rolling in over Capital Killing in Conwy. So we're starting to see the weather front coming in. And we're going to flip-flop with our temperatures as well for the coming few days. The Marlborough Atlantic air, the oranges denoting the weather fronts coming in, and the blast of Arctic air again to the start of Saturday. So some cold nights, more of these weather systems bringing slightly higher temperatures as we go through Sunday. But rain. At the moment, the rain, as I showed you earlier, is coming in across Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, into Cumbria as well. Further east will hold on to brighter skies, even a little bit of sunshine. And temperatures, although on a par with yesterday, feeling a little bit more pleasant because we've lost that wind. But obviously, when we've got the snow over the mountains, it is not going to feel very pleasant this afternoon. That rain continues its progress eastwards and southwards, pepping up actually overnight for some of us. And so alleviating too many frost worries, just a touch in the south and east first off, and then perhaps later in the northwest will be quite a bit of wind following in with the showers. So tomorrow is a story of sunny spells and showers for Scotland, Northern Ireland, and sunshine. British showers and airborne winds adding to the chill. Further some different complexion to the day, cloudier, some hills on the ground, outbreaks of rain coming in right back up in northern England and North Wales later on. Temperatures actually a little bit higher because it won't be so cold to start with tomorrow, but I think people back out in the south, wind in the north, it won't feel too cool. Then we've got low pressure still with us, still blowing a gale across northern areas of the UK, even into the night on Saturday. Temperatures could still tumble away, it's such a frost. So as I hinted at earlier, some cold nights as well. And therefore by day, there will be some sunshine on Saturday. As the showers come in, it will be pale and thundery, but wintry still on the hills in the north, and obviously accentuating the chill because the wind's coming down from the northwest, a blustery wind during the course of Saturday, but possibly the drier of the 2 days because Saturday night, yes, starry skies, and then we've got the frost to contend with, but look what's coming out to the north and the west. So initially, a fine start Sunday, but it goes downhill through the day. Of course, just a reminder that the clocks are leaping forward on Sunday, so it's an hour less in bed as well. So,
thanks, Helen. I'm not loving a lot of what you said there, to be honest. But thank you. And it's all from today's BBC News at 1. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.
I lost my sight completely when I was 8 years old.
Drive, this is a moment in the history of the United States.
My name is Gary, I'm a human chief of American correspondent
Yo,
for the BBC. When I started out in journalism, it was still legal to discriminate against disabled people.
Yeah, because I remember, I come straight from work and forgot about it.
We hadn't done what I was trying to do before me. You can see we're on the ground.
No, you don't need to get cold.
The shelter we are and things like blindness was an interesting factor because on the central interviews I learned afterwards they were pretty striking.
I didn't have enough yesterday on it, so I have to use it.
You spend your whole life interpreting the world through what you hear. Because I can't see it, I just listen to what he said. I listen and I ask the same questions over and over again and remain consistent.
Buy the banana right now, so I just walk back up with cold man. You know, first lay by this up. Which way you normally buy the cold? Not Catford? Yeah. So what you need to do, right, you see when you go over a stoplight, the butcher's on the right, so you go just go buy the yam and banana and just walk back up this and get the cold in it. Yeah, past. Yeah man, you'll get good jam. Just look for good jam, you know. And buy banana because you're not going to stop nowhere else and you need to get the cold. Yeah.
Live from London, this is BBC News. Israel says it's killed Iran's Navy chief overseeing the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump warns Iran better get serious before it's too late and lashes out at NATO allies, accusing them of failing to help. NATO chief Mark Rutte is careful in his response to President Trump's social media post, saying 30 nations are discussing the Strait of Hormuz.
And now over 30 countries have committed to come together to discuss the what, the where, and when it comes to making sure that the sea lanes stay open. And this is exactly also to the request of President Trump.
These are pictures from outside the New York courthouse where the former president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, is set to appear. And Meta and Google say they're going to appear after a jury in California found them liable for creating addictive social media platforms. Hello, I'm Lucy Hawkins. Israel says it has killed an Iranian Navy chief who was overseeing the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Remember, it's one of the world's busiest oil shipping lanes. The Defense Minister Israel Katz says Ali Reza Tansiri was directly responsible for the effective closure of the strait. And these are his words. He says he has been blown up. In President Trump has lashed out once again at NATO allies, accusing them of failing to help the US's levy war against Iran. Posting on
What
social
happened
media,
to the boy, young
the
Carmen,
nations
so
have
we
done
put on
absolutely
chicken.
nothing to help what he called the lunatic nation of Iran, she says has been militarily decimated. The added the US doesn't need anything from NATO. And never forget this is this all comes as the Defense Secretary says it's highly likely that Russia was sharing intelligence with Iran and training Iranians in areas like drone warfare before the war in the Middle East. Our correspondent Alison
An ever-confident US president in the face of demands from Iran. Donald Trump told a fundraising event for the Republicans that negotiations are taking place, but the Iranians were just too scared to admit it.
They are negotiating, by the way, and they want to make a deal so badly, but they're afraid to say it because they're figuring they'll be killed by their own people. They're also afraid they'll be killed by us.
This morning on social media, President Trump doubled down, describing Iran as begging for a deal with the US, adding that their military had been obliterated and there was zero chance of coming back. He warned they better get serious soon, because once it happened, there's no turning back. But Iran continues to deny that talks are taking place.
I state firmly that there's been no negotiation or dialogue with the American side. However, in recent days, the American side has begun sending various messages through different intermediaries.
Whilst the US and Iran continue their war of words, the war of the ground continues. But in the UK, talk has turned to what the British Defence Secretary has called an axis of aggression between Russia and Iran, with both regimes supporting
There's intelligence assessment that confirms that ahead of this conflict, Russia was sharing intelligence with Iran, was providing training to Iran, and it should surprise no one because we've seen Iran supplying drones to Russia to launch on Ukraine, and it should surprise no one that we've got the hidden hand of Putin in Iran, just as we have in Ukraine.
Today, at a meeting with his allies at a major European defence summit in Helsinki, the Prime Minister said talks would be centred on both the wars in Iran and Ukraine.
The focus here is very much on the Russian question in Ukraine, and we have to accept that the war on two fronts, there's the Iranian conflict and the continuing Ukrainian conflict. Today I'll be talking to allies about what more we can do, call for discussions about defence spend, also defence capability.
As NATO released its annual report this morning, Donald Trump also took aim on social media at its member countries, saying they've done nothing to help the US with the war, and that they should never forget this important point in time. Alison Freeman, BBC News.
So what do we know about this Iranian Navy chief that Israel says is killed? Sila Charlan is from BBC.
It's very true what the Israeli defense minister said, that this man was in charge of the closure of Strait of Hormuz, or was effectively the closure of Strait of Hormuz. He was promoted as the chief of IRGC's Navy in 2018 and was held that post. And it was just not him that was killed. It was also the intelligence chief of the Revolutionary Guards Navy as well. So it's a huge blow to the IRGC Navy that I don't think it makes a difference operationally, because there are always people to take their place. But whatever experience that he could have presented to the Navy in terms of keeping Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz, a very important leverage militarily for Iran. That person has gone as part of Israel's extensive bombing campaign across Iranian cities, including the city of Bandar Abbas, southern coastal city in Iran, where apparently he was stationed and where he was killed to an Israeli strike.
Yeah, what is happening on the ground? We've seen a few pictures of the aftermath of strikes. How was the night?
Well, like every other night for the past few weeks, in many places, many cities, in farthest outreach of Iran, east, north, central areas have been hit by the Israelis and the Americans. There have been some civilian casualties. The Iranian government does not update the civilian casualties, but it's what happens from here on, given all the talk and speculation about, on one hand, possible talks, and on the other hand, all this other media speculation about U.S. amphibious assault on Iran's islands.
I'm going to ask you about that in a moment, but
Social from President Trump today, saying that Iran is begging the US for a deal, saying the military has been obliterated, there's zero chance of a comeback. He said Iran's negotiators are very different and very strange. They publicly state they are only looking at our proposal. Wrong, he's put with lots of exclamation marks as well. They're going to get serious soon before it's too late, because once that happens, there is no turning back, and it won't be. So that's from President Trump. What are we hearing?
Well, the Pakistani authorities have made it clear that there hasn't been talks going on. It's just messages that have been passed from Iranian authorities and U.S. authorities. For example, the U.S. presented a 15-point peace plan asking Iran to stop its nuclear program and support for the proxies and so on. And then Iran likewise presented its own 5-point peace plan for a ceasefire, both very maximalist demands. So this is the messages that are being presented back and forth. But whether, as it was speculated, talks will be taking place in Pakistan between Iran and U.S. officials, that seems unlikely, given also the fact that we had a very strange report from Reuters, Pakistani officials in Reuters news agency, that the Israelis had those people who were supposed to be negotiating on behalf of Iran, potentially the foreign minister and the head of the parliament, they had them under assassination list. The Pakistanis got wind of it, they informed the Americans, and the Americans stopped the Israelis from doing that. So a lot of different things going on. And as far as the Iranians are concerned, from what we are monitoring on Iranian different elite think tank channels and pundits who are speaking about this, they think all this speculation about talks and messages being passed and forth is probably a decoy operation meant to distract them from a possible U.S. amphibious assault on Iranian islands.
Let's begin with from Tehran. Spraggabenzeny is the director of Diplomat House. That's a Tehran-based think tank. Speaking on BBC Radio today, he said the U.S. was defeated.
The Americans need to realize and recognize that they have failed and they have failed from the Iranian perspective. If you can look at what President Trump has said for the past 4 weeks, they were talking about regime change and they failed. They said that we are overrated the Iranian nuclear program, and they are wanting to negotiate the nuclear program with Iran. They said that we have concentrated missile capabilities of Iran, and Iran is launching missiles every day. So whatever he says, you can see that according to his own words, they have failed in any achievement in the war. On the other side, the mere fact that Iran has survived is a victory for Iran. And of course, Iran is now controlling the situation and has the upper hand, especially in terms of the Strait of Hormuz.
We have been monitoring a statement given by the leader of Yemen's Houthi movement. Remember, they are proxies of Iran and movement very much aligned with Iran. What they have been saying is that they stand with Iran. This brings a real concern to me, because if the Houthis open a new front in the conflict, an obvious target would be the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, which is off the coast of Yemen. And there's a key shipping, transport and narrow passageway that controls sea traffic through the Suez Canal after Iran effectively shut the critical Strait of Hormuz. So he has just been speaking. And Dr. Efrat Sofer, as the chair of the board, advises at the Esri Center for Iran and Gulf States Research at Haifa University.
Yo, bro.
And I asked her how this conflict would change if Yemen were to get involved.
Having Yemen get
involved
would show full depth of Iranian proxy activity at play at the same time.
When you upset now?
And I think that's indicative of the Iranian regime being backed up against the wall. I think that shows a sign of desperation on behalf of the Iranian regime.
Yep.
And it's also a display of the Iranian regime's looking after its own survival rather than, as one would expect, following the national security of Iran itself.
Yeah, man, I'm there. I'm shopper.
What would be your answer to Spraggabenzeny, who just heard?
Yeah, I don't know. When Portland come, I probably can make a phone call and you know.
The regime has survived. But
right, ready for the work.
Is controlling the Strait of Hormuz.
Okay, all right.
Iran and especially Iranian
long one that.
decision makers and spokespeople are quite good at
projecting a perception
Yeah.
of strength. But when we look
Yeah,
and
there you go,
analyse
there you go.
what is happening kinetically on the ground,
Alright, cool, yeah.
we see that the Iranian regime has largely been decapitated from its leaders. We see Iran reverting to its mosaic leadership infrastructure, where it has become decentralized, which is probably why we have seen the regime hit out at Gulf state neighbors and single-handedly alienating its neighbors and unifying the Arab world. I think this is indicative of a weakened regime. It's also, at the same time, buying time through negotiations. The Iranians have been very, very apt at that. While at the same time, they are facing, as Arash said, probably the largest amphibious assault by the United States since World War II. Because if the Iranian regime has the Straits of Hormuz in a chokehold, it is much more likely that the United States would invade Spraggabenz.
Can you explain a little bit more though about this sort of mosaic leadership that is often referred to? Because we're also hearing Pakistan today confirm that messages have been passed between the US and Iran using Pakistan as an intermediary. There are still very strong reports that actual talks might take place in Pakistan. Who would they be dealing with, the Americans? Who are they reaching out to? How does that work in time?
So at the time, this is a very good question, and Israeli decision makers and analysts have been looking at that very question, where there are leaders. There's Mohammed Reza Khalibaf, who will most probably be heading those talks, but who is giving those orders and who will execute anything that may be agreed is very unclear. So promises could be made, but because of this mosaic structure, which is basically a tenet which is indicative of, ironically, Iran's proxy, where they rely on asymmetric warfare, so that if this leader is no longer there, each unit in itself has autonomy to act. And that, I think, usually can affect the strategic operations of any given organization. And so we need to look at what the regime says versus what it does on the ground.
More coming up on the pictures that we're getting from outside the New York courthouse, where proceedings are about to resume against the former Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, Silvia Flores. Lawyers there tussling over who will actually pay for Mr. Maduro's legal fees. Expecting that to be one of the big points we made today. We will update you on what is happening as things resume in New York shortly. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Shortly after President Trump posted on Truth Social about NATO failing to help the US and Israel on their war on Iran, the NATO Secretary General spoke, and Mark Rutte said that NATO had never been stronger. Our correspondent Nick was at that press conference. Here's the news.
You have made a conscious decision not to criticise President Trump publicly. You were among a number of figures on the global stage who have done that. Well, just last week he was saying that NATO allies were cowards for not joining what's happening in Iran, joining him and Prime Minister Netanyahu. And in that Truth Social post, he ended it by saying, we will remember. Now, whether or not President Trump is aware of this, but that has real echoes and chimes with words of remembrance that for more than 100 years people in Europe in particular have been using that sort of phrase, we will remember them. So I just wonder, I'm not inviting you to criticise President Trump because I know that's something you'd be reluctant to do, but how does that touch you? How does that fill you when you see that sort of post?
When it comes to the comments of President Trump, as I said also with CBS, what I've been seeing is some frustration with him about the Europeans needing to take time to react to his requests when it comes to this question of making sure that sea lanes are open. And I said, hey, there is a reason for that. And the reason is that for good reasons, the US was not able to consult its allies because they wanted to keep the campaign secret. And again, for good reasons, to make sure that nobody knew what happened on that Saturday morning. And always a risk if you inform too many people that things might leak. But that also has the disadvantage that it takes time for the Europeans to get organized. The good news now is that thanks to the leadership from the United Kingdom, France and others, there were originally 6 countries, the UK, France, Italy and Germany and Japan and the Netherlands. Then on Friday 22 countries and by now over 30 countries have committed to come together to discuss the what, the where and when when it comes to making sure that the sea lanes stay open. And this is exactly also to the request of President Trump. And more generally, when it comes to the Middle East and the situation in Iran, NATO has been consistent over the years that NATO does not want as an alliance, and this is a collective position, for Iran to get its hand on either a nuclear capability or a missile capability.
So we have Mark Rutte insisting that NATO has never been stronger. That was his theme today, despite a major group emerging with its largest contributor, the US. Here's our Brussels correspondent, Nick, with business.
Mr. Rutte's supporters say that really he's in an impossible situation. He's got a volatile, unpredictable US president. He's trying to keep him on side for the sake of the whole NATO alliance. His detractors say that he's gone too far and he's really become a cheerleader for what President Trump has been doing alongside the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and that really he's overstepped and he is really simplifying what is quite a difficult situation in terms of what the NATO members individually think about what's happening in Iran. And clearly there is that line, it was the theme of Mr. Rutte's press conference that NATO is stronger than ever, but we see that there is the conflict, of course, in Ukraine, and for Mr. Rutte, Ukraine's survival and the security of that country and the wider security of Europe is absolutely paramount. But I also put it to him that, this is a big distraction because people aren't talking about Ukraine because it's the Middle East war which is gaining all the attention at the moment. He said, absolutely, Ukraine remains a top priority. But I think what we'll see in the coming weeks, despite what Mr. Rutte says, he gave the impression that all these European countries need a bit of time to think and are now lining up behind President Trump and the operations in the Middle East. But just because a lot of military hardware capability boats, whether that's British boats, French, are being sent to the Eastern Mediterranean or other parts of the Middle East, that doesn't mean they're on the same page as President Trump and they're willing to escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz while missiles are flying all the time and drones are flying around, and at the same time the Americans and the Israelis continue to...
Big up yourself, Baba Sky, that the place.
Despite that insistence that NATO allies are allied on this one, they are aligned, it's much more complicated than that, is it?
Back to New York, where the former president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, is set to appear in court again today. We have live pictures from outside the courthouse. He is facing drug trafficking and weapons charges after U.S. Special Forces captured him in January. Since then, Venezuela's government has begun working with Washington, opening its oil and mining sectors to foreign investment, and releasing some political prisoners. He's speaking to American President Isaac.
From what we understand, Nicolas Maduro is already inside the courthouse ahead of this hearing that is going to begin in a little under 2 hours. But yes, as you mentioned, in January, the U.S. government very much making a show of Nicolas Maduro and that transport from the Federal Detention Center in Brooklyn, where he has been held since, along with his wife, Celia Flores, all the way here to this federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Now, we have a few protesters here that are outside of the court. Actually, protesters were in support of Nicolas Maduro, and we do expect that the crowds will grow later in the day to include, just like last time, Venezuelans who are happy that he is now in a prison, in a jail, awaiting trial. But what this hearing is really going to do, Lucy, is it's going to help lay out what this very complex trial is going to look like over the coming months, if not more than a year. There are going to be dates set for exchanging evidence, filing certain motions, perhaps even a trial date will be given. But we've already seen that this is a very kind of legally thorny case because the defense is already concerned that the U.S. government is blocking the Venezuelan government from funding Nicolas Maduro's legal defense. His lawyers say that that's against his constitutional rights, whereas the government says that he is no longer the president. He wasn't deemed by the U.S. government to be the president since 2018 of Venezuela, and therefore, as a sanctioned entity, shouldn't be able to get that money. And also, the prosecution, for their side, are concerned that Nicolas Maduro could share evidence with other defendants who haven't been apprehended yet, including his son and a sitting minister in Venezuela. So these are all of the topics that are going to be ironed out.
Across developments in New York, but here, resident doctors in England will stage a 6-day strike next month. What's going down between the union and the government over jobs and pay? The British Medical Association accused ministers of shifting the goalposts. The government says it is bent over backwards to reach a deal to half first on it.
This was March 2023, the first time resident doctors went out on strike. Over the last 3 years, they've walked out 14 times. Now have announced 50. This walkout is one of the longest, starting at 7 a.m. on April the 7th, lasting until just before 7 on the morning of the 13th. But take note of the timing here, just after the long bank holiday weekend. So the last day of normal weekday staffing levels will be Thursday the 2nd of April. The resident doctors, who used to be known as junior doctors, want pay restoration, saying they're paid a fifth less now than they were in 2008, once inflation is taken into account. And previous strikes have had an impact. Since they started, the resident doctors have had pay rises adding up to almost 30%. The government says a new deal would have brought that to 35% over 4 years. But the doctors' union says that's not enough when you include cost of living increases.
We've had more than decades of federal attempts to cut cuts. Yes, there has been a good start to reversing that trend since 2024, and we fully recognise that, but it does need to continue on that journey towards restoring pay.
The government says that's not reasonable and not realistic.
They may well want to reconsider because the offer doesn't get better than this. And as the disruption occurs and as the costs mount, we simply won't be able to afford to offer this again.
Both sides say they talk to avoid a return to the picket lines, but neither wants to budge. Catherine Burns, BBC News.
Let's take you briefly to Helsinki to the pictures that we're getting from there, because we are expecting comment from the leaders of both Finland and Iceland of the JEF, that's the Northern European Military Alliance. President Trump calling Europe to do more to protect the High North. They'll be discussing that, and we can imagine the war in Iran too. So we may take you there in next time.
For many, it was a fine start to the day. Frosty, yes, but with plenty of sunshine. That sunshine has all but disappeared in the north and west now. It'll hang on in eastern areas for the next hour or two, but actually it'll be turning hazy all the time because we've got some patchy rain on the way on this weather system, and it's actually giving a light covering of snow in the hills of Scotland. The high pressure's continuing to hold on just about in southern areas, and hence it'll just turn cloudy but remain bright when you stand in the southeast. The rain's creeping across the Irish Sea.
into western fringes of England and Wales. Temperatures on a par with those of yesterday, without the wind. It's been a bit more pleasant where we've had the brightness and the sunshine, but the rain does pep up a bit through this evening overnight from Northern Ireland to Scotland. Some drips and drabs starting to sink southwards across England and Wales. Ahead of it, we might see a little bit of frost first thing in the night, and then later perhaps we'll find it again to Scotland. But the wind's picking up here, ushering in more showers, and there'll be a more wintry flavour through the day tomorrow, but plenty of sunshine in between for Scotland, particularly eastern Scotland, Northern Ireland, whilst England and Wales has different complexion to the weather with outbreaks of rain coming and going in cloudy skies. Still relatively mild here, but obviously tempered by the wind, which is gale force by the end of the night in the north and the west. So a windier day on Friday. We get a drier day Saturday, but more rain on the way on Sunday, perhaps some lifting of temperatures into next week.
Here on the Security Brief, we go inside the stories that shape global conflicts, the threats that most people never see coming.
I spent 20 years in the British military from planning to corporal execution.
We'll tell you what is happening and why it matters to you. That's the Security Brief, here on BBC News.
Jeffrey Epstein was the paedophile financier at the centre of one of the most high-profile sex trafficking networks in history. For a special programme, we brought together a group of survivors here in Washington, D.C. Some of these women have never spoken publicly before until now.
This research factory in London is producing millions of flies every month with the hope it could solve the environmental challenge of food waste. So, how does it work and will they take off? Join me, Alistair Keane, on Tech Now on BBC News.
Maternity care under strain like never before.
They let that girl down in the most horrific way.
A system creaking under pressure.
Things can go quite abruptly and then a catastrophic moment.
Mums and babies being put at risk.
And you usually say, and nobody listens to us.
We feel clear. They feel us.
We hear from midwives on the inside.
Most days feel absolutely terrified. There's no capacity and they don't work to take them. There's no time to take them.
And ask, are we doing enough to keep women and babies safe?
Women's experiences of deteriorating and staff are very stressed. That is a pretty lethal combination.
People will see what's actually happening and to understand that things do need to change.
Watch on BBC iPlayer.
Here at BBC Verify, we use forensic investigative techniques and tools to fact-check stories, verify information and counter disinformation. Using data analysis and the latest technology, our journalists examine the evidence and get to the facts. Watch our BBC Verify reports on the BBC News channel or go online to find out more.
This is BBC News, the headlines. Israel says it has killed Iran's Navy chief overseeing the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump warns Iran better get serious before it's too late and lashes out at NATO allies, accusing them of failing to help. And Chief Mark Rutte is careful in his response to President Trump's social media post, saying 13 nations are discussing the Strait of Hormuz. This night, outside the New York courthouse where the former president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, is set to appear. So, Lucy Hopkins, we start with some breaking news. The women's category of Olympic sports will be limited to biological females from 2028. The International Olympic Committee says that eligibility will be determined by a once-in-a-lifetime sex test, which will
Yes, guys, welcome to my live.
differences in sexual development from
I'm here in the kitchen doing some cooking at the moment. You know, it's Thursday and it's Jerk Thursday.
I understand that this is a very sensitive topic. As a former athlete, I passionately believe in the rights of all Olympians to take part in fair competition. The policy that we have announced is based on science, and it has been led by medical experts with the basic
You know, it's a big girl just called me a while ago and asked me for true. Send it to him.
Male chromosomes give performance advantages in sports that rely on strength, power, or endurance. At the Olympic Games, even the smallest margins can be the difference between victory and defeat. So it's absolutely clear that it would not be fair for biological males to compete in the female category.
Let's take you to Hugh Barris, who joins us from the UGC Sports Centre. Can you just give us some more detail about this ruling from the IOC and some background?
That's right, Lucy, yes. Coming just in the last few minutes or so, the announcement from the IOC through their president, Kirsty Coventry, that this will take effect from the LA Games in 2028 for all IOC events beyond just the Olympic Games, saying that it is evidence-based, expert-informed and protects fairness, safety and integrity in the female category. You heard words very much of that nature from Kirsty Coventry as well. This will affect all of those females wanting to appear in the women's events at future Olympics. They will have to go this SRY gene screening to detect their biological sex. Usually that is done non-invasively, a cheek swab or a saliva test or perhaps a blood test as well. Until this announcement, the debate has been raging throughout sport. The IOC, they let sex eligibility very much up to each governing body of the individual sports rather than applying a universal approach. But they have now decided to apply that approach not only for transgender athletes, but also for those athletes, as you mentioned, DSD, differences in sexual development. This debate really started in earnest with a DSD athlete called Caster Semenya, a two-time Olympic gold medal winner at the 2012 and 2016 Games in the women's 800 metres. Then, in 2021, the New Zealand weightlifter Laurel Hubbard became the first transgender woman to compete at an Olympics after transitioning. But this blanket approach has been one that has followed individual sports like athletics and boxing, using this SRY gene screening test. Opponents, though, remain concerned that that genetic test is invasive and can lead to a potential false positive. Gene screening like this was eventually abolished after being used in the 1980s, in the 1990s. So no doubt, even though this has been very much an announcement that has been waited for and delivered, that the debate and the conversation will continue into the coming months ahead of those 2028 LA Games.
Indeed, Hugh, thank you so much for updating us. We're going to take you live now to Helsinki because we are seeing a press conference of the JEF, the Joint Expeditionary Force that is being held in Helsinki, and this is Iceland's Prime Minister, Kristen Frostbottom.
How different capabilities work together. So we're not spending all on the same stuff. We work good together, and we do security in kind of a different way. We are mostly focusing on host nation support, infrastructure, facilities, being a good hub, being a good ally for those that come in. And that's also important for us to be able to show and also see how we can work better together. So again, Alex, thank you today, and I'm looking forward to welcoming everyone to Reykjavik next year.
Well, Mr. President, Alex, I agree with this summing up. Let me just pay attention to what we have done today. Being in Helsinki, we have had the opportunity to also focus on the situation awareness around this inner part of the Baltic Sea. Because this is big geography in the JEF, ranging from the high North Arctic through the Norwegian, Swedish, Finnish, Iceland geography and then into the Baltic Sea. And part of this partnership in JEF, as you said, Alex, correctly, which is kind of between what we do as nations and what we do in NATO, we have this regional layer in the middle. And in order to be effective there, we need to know about each other's environment and concerns and opportunities. So today, being with your Coast Guard, seeing their professional approach to managing this very intense traffic area of the inner Baltic has been very useful. Finnish professionalism, updated situation awareness, which I think has gained a lot. So that's my one add-on to this. I think this was very useful. And then I'd just like to reiterate what
Prime Minister of Norway here just talking to the media about JEF, this Northern European Military Alliance, and what's being done there to protect the High North. We haven't heard anything yet about the Iran war, but we're keeping across there. We want to take you over to Washington now, to President Trump, who is holding a cabinet meeting. Let's listen.
And he was a very popular senator, a very effective senator. Effective probably being the more important word, JD, don't you think? And we should let up. He's going to be fantastic. Congratulations to an amazing family that were here yesterday. Joe, someone in his family is amazing. So thank you very much. We're now on day 41 of the disgraceful Democrat shutdown of Mark Wayne's department. Congratulations. Mark. Shut down by the radical Democrats.
Sean Celebrity in the house, because myself, Sean Celebrity. Welcome, 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 welcome.
We're interviewing people at the airport and they're all angry at the Democrats. The same.
Baba Sky and Sean Celebrity. Family 88 and Nadine Mason. Big up on yourself. Welcome to my life, no?
The Democrats, they know what's happening. But they're punishing the American people, including travelers at airports, all in the quest to return.
Please like and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, please. Can you have a look at my playlist? Look at my content.
They love sanctuary cities, which is a sanctuary for criminals. They want to make sure they're taken care of. That's what they're fighting about. That's really what they're fighting. They never talk about that, but that's what they're fighting about. They want to protect criminals. In many cases, 11,888 murders. Many of them, I will say, are gone now. Because of us, we got them out. But still have some that should have never been allowed to come into the country. But we're not going to let it happen. We're not going to let the Democrats get away with this stuff. And people are wise to them. So they need to end the shutdown immediately, or we'll have to take some very drastic measures. This morning I want to give an update on the Operation Epic Fury, which is an appropriate name because we are absolutely obliterating them. Over the past 3 weeks, we've been hitting Iran's military capabilities at a level that few people have ever seen before. Few people never knew there was such a capability. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world by far. I built it during my first administration, and I used it during my second administration. Unfortunately, because I'd rather not have to use it. But it's a display of force and precision and skill like nothing the world has really witnessed, although you get a pretty good witnessing of it in Venezuela also. And that was a smaller version of what we're doing then. We're crushing their missiles and drone stockpiles, destroying their defense industrial base. We've wiped out their Navy completely, their Air Force completely. We've wiped out a large percentage of their missiles. And the missile launchers, without the launchers, the missiles don't do any good. And we've knocked out probably close to 90% of the launchers, probably more than 90% of the missiles themselves. Between some they fired and one that they fired we knocked out. We've also destroyed a lot of the factories. We're continuing to do that, but a lot of the factories where they manufacture the drones and the missiles. The drones too are way down, but the reason they're down is they go one way and they don't come back, because for the most part we're shooting them down. But we also are able to, we've really done tremendous damage to the places where they make them. And just so we set the record straight, because I've been watching the Wall Street Journal's fake news, all these stories that get printed like, oh, I want to make a deal. They are begging to make a deal, not me. They're begging to make a deal. And anybody that saw what was happening over there would understand why they want to make a deal. But they say, oh, we're not talking to them. Anybody would know they're talking. And only a total fun. They're not fools. They're very smart, actually, in a certain way. And they're great negotiators. I say they're lousy fighters, but they're great negotiators. They are begging to work out a deal. I don't know if we'll be able to do that. I don't know if we're willing to do that. We should have done that 4 weeks ago. They should have done it 2 years ago. Or they should have done it when we first came into office, because 2 years ago they had free reign under Biden. Sleepy Joe, worst president in the history of our country. But he allowed to happen to our country at the borders. And even with a thing like this. But not just him, every president for 47 years, every president should have done this. They should have done it a long time ago, because you cannot give lunatics a nuclear weapon, and they would have had a big one. It stopped really when we did the B-2, but even before that, Barack Hussein Obama, what he did where he gave them the Iran nuclear deal, gave them free will toward a nuclear weapon. Basically, he chose Iran over Israel and others that didn't want him to do it. But I terminated that deal. Had I not terminated that deal, you would have had a nuclear weapon years ago and it would have been used, guaranteed. And one of the reasons you know about the guarantees because their neighbors were sort of like bystanders. They weren't involved very much. They didn't choose heavy side. They didn't want to because they were concerned with Iran. Big black cloud over the Middle East. They were concerned, but all of a sudden, when they start shooting at these five, in particular 5 countries, we start shooting at Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Oman. We start shooting at them. Everybody was shocked, including us. You know why? Because they're sick. And they had a plan to take over the Middle East. And some of those missiles that we shot at them were locked long before we even started this process. They were locked and loaded and aimed at those countries. They wanted to take over the Middle East. But we happened to come along, so it wasn't so easy. So right now the Navy is sunk in the largest elimination of a foreign Navy that has taken place, maybe ever, but certainly since World War II. Their Air Force is gone, their anti-aircraft and communications capabilities are totally dismantled, and one of the problems they do have when they deal with us is we deal with people that people aren't able to communicate with anybody else. Because all of their leadership has been gone. The first level was gone, and they had to pick a new level, and they're gone. They're all gone. Because they didn't make a deal, and because they're sick people. They're really sick. They're really sinister, sick people. And if anybody thinks it was okay to have a group of people like this to have nuclear capability, nuclear weapons, and we didn't attack with the B-2 bombers, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks of that, maybe 4 weeks. But between 2 and 4 weeks, they were planning to have a nuclear weapon. And we didn't hit them at that time with the B-2 bombers. And one of the great air raids in history, maybe the greatest. Dark at night, no moon, no light, every single bomb hit its mark and just obliterated that place. So it's now very deep under earth. And it was an amazing thing that they would have a nuclear, and they would have used it without question. And you know that because why did they shoot all these countries that weren't even really involved with them? They weren't involved. They had no big problems. Because they're sick. Because they wanted to take over the Middle East, not just Israel. Certainly Israel would have been the first on their list. They would have used nuclear weapons. Any nuclear, you don't need too many of them. But they would have used a nuclear weapon on Israel, they would have used it on the other neighbors, and then they would have come after us. And if we had a weak president, they would have done great damage. Fortunately, you didn't have a weak president. I knew what was happening. And I think we've been proven right. You know, they took one missile, 2,500 miles. They supposedly didn't have a missile like that. They had no missile with that capability. But they shot the now famous island, the island that the UK was very afraid to give us. Because they didn't want to get dragged in. We didn't want to get dragged into their wars either. One thing we're very disappointed, I'll say publicly, we're very disappointed with NATO. Because NATO has done absolutely nothing. And I've always said, 25 years ago, I was somebody that wasn't a politician, but I was always involved in politics, and I understood politics. I said 25 years ago that NATO's the paper tiger, but more importantly, that we'll come to their rescue, but they will never come to ours. And I want you to remember that we said this, they didn't come to our rescue. Now they all want to help. When they're annihilated, the other side is annihilated, they say, we love to send ships. Actually made a statement, a couple of them, that we want to get involved when the war is over. No, it's supposed to get involved when the war is beginning, or even before it begins. We had the UK say that we'll send this is 3 weeks ago, we'll send our aircraft carriers, we're trying to those aircraft carriers, the toys compared to what we had. But we'll send our aircraft carrier when the war is over. I said, oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Don't bother. We don't need it. And we don't need it. We don't need them. We estimated it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve our mission. And we're way ahead of schedule. If you look at what we've done in terms of the destruction of that country, we were way ahead. Think of it, they have no Navy, and they have good ships. 154 ships have been shot down and are resting very nicely at the bottom of the sea. And we did that in a matter of less than a week. So we have the greatest military in the world by far, nobody even close. So we estimated it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve our mission. 26 days in, we're extremely, really a lot ahead of schedule. The Iranian regime is now admitting to itself that they have been decisively defeated. They're saying to people, this is a disaster. You know, that's why they're talking to us. And they're only, they wouldn't talk otherwise. But they're talking to us because they've got a disaster on their hands. They're defeated. They can't make a comeback. We're free to roam over there. Cities and towns and destroy all of their crazy nuclear weapons and missiles and drones that they're building. And we're doing that. They now have a chance to make a deal. That's up to them. And they're telling me we're not negotiating. We will not negotiate. Of course they're negotiating. They're obliterated. Who would negotiate? They are begging to make a deal. We'll see if we can make the right deal. If they make the right deal, then the strait will open up. All the strait will open up. And even now, we don't know if there are any mines. You know, they have 22 mine droppers. Think of it. Who would have 22 mine droppers? There's a boat that drops mines. Who has 22 mine droppers? Except for people with very evil intention. So, every one of those mine droppers has been struck with the same weapon we used to stop drugs from coming into the United States of America. When we hit those boats, it's the exact same weapon, extremely effective. We have unlimited supplies and extremely effective. But they have no more mine drugs. By the way, speaking of drugs, we're 98% down drugs coming in by water, by the ocean, by the sea. 98%. And we're trying to find out who are the 2% because we think they're the bravest men anywhere in the world. Maybe women. But whoever's on those boats is very brave or doesn't watch television. But we're drugs coming in by sea, coming in by water, are 98% down. And now we'll stop the drugs coming in by land. The land is the easy one. You have to stop the water. A lot of it came into the water. Now it's all beached. And these people are trying to come in by land. And we will, that's an easy one. But we had to take care of the water first. Nobody's coming in. Virtually nothing is coming in anymore. It was hundreds of millions of dollars a week were coming in by water. They now have the chance, that is, Iran, to permanently abandon their nuclear ambitions and to chart a new path forward. We'll see if they want to do it. If they don't, it'll be their worst nightmare. In the meantime, we'll just keep blowing them away, unimpeded, unstopped. There's nothing they can do about it. They can't do anything about it. You know? Tell you if they could, you'd be hearing about it. You'd be hearing about it. You don't hear anything about it. They can't shoot our jets. They're the best military equipment in the world, but not even a contest. And you see that with Venezuela. They had other equipment they didn't have us. The situation in Venezuela was a great military operation, getting a very, very dangerous man who's killed a lot of people, forced people into our country. Well, he emptied his prisons in Venezuela, emptied his prisons into our country, and I hope that charge will be brought at some point. Because that was a big charge. It hasn't been brought yet. It should be brought. He emptied his prisons into our country. And was a major purveyor of drugs coming into our country. And he's is now been captured. And,
Oh, what go Rastaman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I would imagine there are other trials coming because they really, they've just done a fraction of the kind of things that he's done. Other cases are going to with Iran, we're going to keep doing what we've been doing, and nobody's a match for the United States. They're not a match.
United States.
I'm so disappointed in NATO.
You have to be disappointed. Your problem, man. Huh?
We're going to remember. Just remember this in a number of months from now. Remember our statements. And the radio station, never forget. Towards the end, threats to America abroad will focus here, home, on building the greatest economy in the history of the world. Now, before the start, it was down to 50,000. The S&P hit 7,000. Both of those achievements were not achievable. Every one of you, most of you, said we'll never hit 50,000 during the 4-year period because it was too high. Well, we hit it in our first year. And I said, well, now we have to take an excursion to Iran and we have to stop this maniac who's no longer with us. The supreme leader of Supreme no longer with us. We have to stop him from blowing up the world, blowing up the Middle East, and blowing up our country, and we did that. And I thought the oil prices would go up more, and I thought the stock market would go down more. Hasn't been nearly as severe as I thought. I think they have confidence in maybe the American president and maybe the people sitting around the stage. But Americans filing their taxes this year are receiving record-setting refunds. It's a very big story. Well, it should be a big story. I don't do that about it. I speak about it. And I speak about it because when I speak about it, these people here, you don't write about it. You don't write about the drug prices going down, going down 30, 40, 50, 60%, 70%. Favored nations. Well, most favored nations will be paying the lowest price anywhere in the world before we pay the highest price in the world, Bobby, right? And now we're going to pay the lowest price in the world. That's quite a difference. It's a difference of from 40 to 70 and 80 and even 90%. That's a pretty big difference. But we're slashing regulations and investors pouring in from all over the world. We have the most investment of any country in history has been put into our country in the last...
Starbucks, big up yourself. Good afternoon, Starbucks. So I go on. So I need some flour now for cook some hard food, some yam, banana, dumpling.
Put out a fire. Very dangerous fire that could have blown up big portions of the world, if not the whole thing. So tomorrow we'll be announcing a variety of actions that we're taking to support American farmers. So we never forget, we love the farmers. We gave them $12 billion out of tariff money, tremendous amount of tariff money coming in. And we continue to have, we've done, as you know, the Supreme Court gave us a very unfortunate foolish ruling. We're willing to give some people that have ripped off our country for many years.
I can buy 10 now?
Wait till it come.
Oh, but you still are. So I'm going to work, that's why.
Well, me not deal with it. Me not deal with that no more, man.
Yeah.
I have to deal with that.
It's not taking long.
Talk to him about half an hour
All
ago.
right.
That cat for him, I come.
Alright. Bless you, man.
We gave them $12 billion, and they're extremely happy, and they deserve it in a big way. They never complain, they just go out and farm, and they wouldn't do anything. They wouldn't trade jobs with any of you, except maybe some of the fake media. Somehow I don't see that. I like their job better. I love the farmers. So we give them $12 billion. So in just a few moments, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will discuss the actions that we're taking to address energy prices, which have not gone up as much as I thought, Scott, to be honest with you. It's not over, so maybe it'll go up a little bit more. So we're going to come back down to where it was, and probably lower.
Oh,
You ready?
Only 32 pound dip on it yesterday. It's only 32 pound dip on it yesterday.
Oh, same.
We only have 16 pound left on it, so I'm gonna buy it. Try.
Yeah, baddest man in the world, man. I'm fool, man.
Oh, they even going about dickhead Trump, man. Yeah. That man there's the most corrupt man, and he's the one that makes lies real. You know what I mean? He can tell you a blatant lie and then look in the face, tell you it's the truth. And if you want to disown, just tell him it's a lie. He wants to lock you up. Yeah, he's a rapist, paedophile, and blatantly convicted of it. But no one ain't seeing nothing. Yeah, well, them people there, it's him and Israelis that are running things. And them Israelis, I'm not a racist of any way, shape or form. But then I've got to look back to how the World War II was, why the Germans are so adamant to kill off their people. I think why? You know what I mean? Because they, yeah man, there was some...
was a racist fight.
I just feel that the world's gone to pot and they done business about the world because they got money. They got their own little private sanctuary if it goes bad for them to do what they want to do. They ain't worried about
See, I get that. Put it on fire car. Stop. Fire. When it on fire car, I would scream. I said, do I chicken? I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know the fuck it is. I'm gone. Look out there. Get it.
Yeah.
Look on the seat out there, sir. On the chair. Open the door and look on the chair out there, sir.
No problem. I will take one.
Yeah, try it fire up on it.
I forgot yesterday when I was working with you.
My fire car and car. Let's go and take this man and take it up. Okay, look at it and go ahead.
Yeah.
Get it, go look at the fire seat out there, sir.
Yeah, man, don't worry.
Tell him to take it. Yeah. Over there. Shoot that. I will shoot it right here. How long would I shoot him? Oh, I know the man did this. How long? Me said I'm shooting. No, I'm doing no.
Who want to play a role in
I'll tell him that.
I can report to you today.
Okay.
I'll
say it for me. Any other for them? What the leg?
And this has resulted in strong and positive messaging as you just indicated to the press. But these are sensitive diplomatic and you directed us to maintain confidentiality on specific terms and not negotiate.
If I hear you outside, if I language?
I can say this.
Oh, Turkey, you never know what's on the same.
That this is the inflection point with no good alternatives for them. Other than more we have strong signs that this is a possibility that if the deal happens, it would be great for the country for the entire region and the world at large. Your policy of peace through strength.
What they said, them at the gun for him.
Resolution here. Just as this policy was effective to in each and every one of all of the other conflicts you sent in the first year. Iran following your powerful threat on Saturday. Your invitations that you were willing to listen to peace proposals have been well received. You've instructed us that your preference is always peace, and that we should make that our priority. We have delivered on this. We only 15 points of peace. Finally, we have closed our way for the last thing.
Okay, maybe I learned this. I'm better than that. I didn't use that enough. I didn't use the place one at a time. There wasn't man at a time. I didn't use the place one at a time. I didn't use the place one at a time.
of the free world and have you encouraged the
And then you so every time, I do. Huh?
from holding the world hostage. That's the word.
Yeah, but that's what I talk about that, bless you.
The history of the nation's military been so quickly and effectively neutralized. Operation Epic Fury is
Yeah, them shoot.
Yeah?
I mean, them shoot.
That's why I'm going to do.
Turtle, that's what it is.
Turtle beer?
ensure they never obtain.
I want man, someone on that beach somewhere.
This is
I want a beach. I must have go for 4 hectares over side. How much by copper or something today? Must somewhere around us where under the rock, on the side there. Turtle beer, so it's not a long road turtle beer.
I'm going to go up 10. What do you know that?
These cameras, they have a choice. You're informing the American people.
Someone didn't violate that.
You know, if I sell up a lunch, you make the man on the paper or something.
Lucky or blue, lucky in Guay. The America is the money, I dead too.
Why, man? Because Frem days done, you know.
Yeah.
Frem days done. Somebody money they must take her.
Executing a dangerous mission. My message to the media is get it right.
Shoot, can't win that. They win. Then they're in hospital.
Yeah. Gonna save him.
2007, I helped lead the Surge Republic fight for Iraq's Stewart. And Rockefeller stayed in the Senate and declared that war is lost for freedom started. Who was that?
And his brother live up where Pingo them up the side.
3 weeks into the operation. This is This is success, pure American success, on plan, as the president said, ahead of pace. Over 10,000 enemy targets destroyed, over 140 hit down the right spread, over 150 naval vessels, some underground facilities destroyed, their defense industrial base in shambles, and overnight, not only do they not have a Navy, Mr. President, they no longer have a Navy command. IRGC's Navy command was killed overnight with an operation. So no Navy.
Yeah, man, thank you, man. Don't worry.
You'd be screaming, why not? And now that he has taken decisive action, you're asking, well, why did you? It's the same old tires, like TDS in your DNA. But the hardworking, God-fearing, patriotic Americans out there know better. You believe this?
Said for America, this boat, man. Nah.
The Iranian military factories and bases that were systematically destroyed were paid for by the pallets of American cash that were flew into Tehran under the Iran deal. You might call it an inconvenient truth. Iran took our money and turned it into weapons, bunkers, and ammo. And now we're destroying those weapons and rewriting Mr. President, and there's no mistake we had to act. And our objectives are clear: no nukes, no Navy, and complete dismantling of their missile program and defense industrial base. And as Marco pointed out, that mission would be well.
Listen, I'm not going to peace running.
What's the name of it?
2 days ago, they shot 2 failed missiles on a target 4,000 miles away. For years, they told me that their missiles could only range 2 kilometers. Surprise. Yet again, they're on the clock. And to the world, I say London is 4,000 kilometers from Washington, D.C. is 300 kilometers from Venezuela, another country. It's something that for a long time makes it come up. He's telling us that Iran is not a threat to the world because the U.S. president. Well, here's the success. It actually looks like Rachel. 18 warthogs. Nobody loved.
Calvin 2% Calvin 2% up. I want to get for the bone up. Before last.
We send these small, low-flying, close air support platforms when the enemy has no lead air defense system. Their presence is proof. Iran's air defenses. The command and control shattered their time.
I'm close the water. The water, I'm close it to the water. This. Oh.
I think I only for a beach there around the bush of them there, around the so bar pea. And I really what's around the so?
What's around the so? I don't know now.
I thought Trump would be good morning, yes.
Memphis, Tennessee, I just came back, we were there, crime is down 75%. In a short period of time, we got 5 months. We could do that for Chicago, we could do that for New York, we could do that for LA, and we could do that for, frankly, San Francisco. I know that the mayor is trying very hard, he's a Democrat, but he's trying very hard, but we can do it much more effectively, because he can't do what we do. He can't take people out from the city and bring them back to the country from where they came, where they were in prisons, they were allowed to go in prisons. They were drug dealers, the highest level of drug dealers, murders, 11,888 murders. We do things that they can't do. I had friends calling me up from San Francisco, could you give him a chance? I said, absolutely. I did. Why? We'll give him a chance. He's trying, he's doing okay, but we can do much better. We can make it a lot safer than it is. San Francisco. Well, a great city was a great city. It's quickly become a great city again. But the other go into the city. I tell my friends that we're substantial people. You know, certain business where people made a lot of money out of it. But they have tremendous potential. It's one of the greatest cities in the world. Now it's got a lot of crime. And the mayor's really trying. Again, a Democrat trying. And I spoke to him, he just wants to have a chance. And I said, we'll give you a chance. But we can solve it very quickly. This young lady would be around today if we were around, because we have nobody coming through our border. I mean, literally for 9 months it's zero. It's hard to believe that that number can be possible. There's millions of people came into the body. But nobody even tries. We don't have the caravans of thousands, 25, 30,000 people pouring into our border. They come up in caravans. We don't have caravans anymore. There's no such thing anymore. It's a name that I think I developed, but somebody developed it, but I think it was me. I thought it was an appropriate. Thousands of people would come up and just barge into our country, totally unchecked, totally unvetted. And this man came in, Dan, right? And he came in through this open border of Biden. If we were there, the election was rigged, what are you going to do? Came back, big comeback. But if we were there, we would have had people coming through. It's amazing, you know, it's so easy now because everyone knows they're not getting through. We don't have the caravans. Once they're done with it, but it was easy to come through. When I heard that they had an open border policy, I said, "Boy, this is going to be." I couldn't believe it when it was actually, you know, it dawned on me because I had built 1,000 miles of wall, and we were finishing up some, and he didn't want to finish it up. I said, "They really do want to have an open border," and we got it finished. But that young lady would be alive today. And she'd be alive for another reason.
Because as Donald Trump moves on to other domestic issues, we will just come away, we will return because the way these cabinet meetings are filmed and the comments, it goes back and forth, and I'm sure they will return to the theme of the war in Iran, and you heard him towards the beginning say that he would take questions, so we will certainly take the questions as well. Let me just sum up what we heard on the war in the Middle East. He said, we are absolutely obliterating Iran, crushing their drones, their missiles, we've wiped out their navy, their air force, they're lousy fighters, great negotiators, they're begging for a deal, but we don't know if we're going to actually do one. And he said that they were sick as a regime, firing at neighbours. He then launched into, again, an attack on NATO, saying he was very disappointed in the NATO response, not supporting him in this war. Paper tigers, he again attacked Keir Starmer here of the UK. On the schedule, he said, we planned 4 to 6 weeks, we are extremely ahead of schedule. And then he went on to say, in Tehran, they're admitting they've been defeated and they are talking to us. No direct evidence, though, of that put forward. A couple of other points. He said, we heard from Steve Woodcock as well, the main negotiator. He said there were strong signs that man could be used to make a deal. And the President also talking about the economic consequences, saying oil prices have not gone up as much as he thought and markets have not gone down as much as he had thought. So those the early thoughts of the US President at that cabinet meeting. Let's bring in Ahmed Reza Azizi, who is a visiting fellow for the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Welcome here to the programme. Let's get to that central issue, because a long list of the military capacity that Donald Trump says has been depleted, but that is different, isn't it, to there being clear signs that Iran does want to make a deal and does want to negotiate.
Yes, that's true, and this is the line that the U.S. officials, President Trump himself, have been repeating since day one, that they have sort of taken out some 80 to 90% of Iran's missile capabilities, other sort of military potential like the Navy, etc. But the reality on the ground is that Iran is still firing missiles toward Israel, and the operations against U.S. bases in the region also continue. And from the perspective of the Iranian leadership, as far as I can follow from the statements in the state media, they really believe that they have the upper hand, and they are the ones who can dictate the terms of any agreement. So when we saw the reports about this so-called 15-point plan presented by the United States, it wasn't really enthusiastically received by the Iranians, as President Trump says. And the latest thing that I saw just a couple of minutes before joining you from Tasnim News Agency, a statement news agency, was that Iran insists on its own terms of a decisive end to the war, compensation, and ending the war on both fronts. And by the way, making permanent the regulations, as they say, that they have established around the Strait of Hormuz. So the positions are still just too far from each other to for one to think of a conflict.
Yes, and all of those things would certainly not be acceptable to Washington. When you watch Donald Trump over the years, he always likes to appear to be the man making the decisions. And it's interesting just listening to him to talk about the Iranians begging for a deal, but then going on to say, but I don't know if I want to make the deal. Was that a clue to you that perhaps he senses that there is no real interest. Talks about we're not going that far.
Definitely. So, this is actually my guest told earlier this week on Will, when President Trump posted onto his social that he's going to postpone attacking energy infrastructure until the end of the week. And since then, actually, he's signaling apparently aimed at pacifying the global and also the US market. We know that by the time that the 5-day vaccination ends, it will be the closing of the markets in the US. And that may be, that is, again, how it is interpreted in Iran ourselves. It's probably going to be the start of another round of escalation, potentially involving the US ground troops being dispatched towards the Iranian island, and we've seen troops movements over the past couple of days as well.
So you really think that is a realistic possibility? The deadline, you're exactly right. It would continue at the end of Friday. US Marines thought to be in region by the weekend. Do you think those are the relevant things as far as everything we may hear or see posted? Do you think those are the important things to keep in mind?
Listen. No.
The expectation is that on the road, that's where we actually go. I'll ask you about a separate question which has emerged in the last half an hour, because Houthi leaders are reported to have warned that a military response from them if the Middle East requires it. And that is interesting. What do you make of that? Because Iran has also been threatening in recent days that there's going to be a Red Sea Strait via the Houthi proxies. That would be quite significant, diverting vessels back for weeks and months through Suez. So how do you view and assess that potential risk?
Well, to me, someone who's studied this network of Iran for resistance, the Houthis have been signaled in Europe for a reason, and that's for a scenario of a US ground invasion or an attack on Iranian islands or Harvard. And other groups supported by Iran, like the Iraqi Shia groups, have already been involved in this war. I think the Houthis are expected to start the say the attacks toward the Red Sea, and that is what we want to on to probably impact on the global economy.
That can be restored. I think what we can return there for more will be commended to watching.
It was fine sunshine. What's the yes, but we tend to sunshine. That sunshine is all but disappeared in the north and the west now. And you'll hang on in eastern areas for the next hour or two, but actually it'll be turning hazy all the time because we've got some patchy rain on the way on this weather system, and it's actually giving a light covering snow in the coast of Scotland. Our high pressures continuing to hold on just about in southern areas, and hence it'll just turn cloudy but remain bright in the town in the southeast. The rain is sweeping across the Irish Sea into western England and Wales. Temperatures are on par with those of yesterday, without the wind between the pleasant road and brightness in the sunshine. But the rain does step up a bit this evening overnight with all Ireland and Scotland. Some dribs and drabs starting to see southeast of England and
whereas ahead of it we might see a little bit of Scotch first thing in the night, and then later perhaps we'll find it again in Scotland. So really speaking up here, ushering in more showers, and there'll be a little wintry flavour through the day tomorrow, but plenty of sunshine in between Scotland, particularly eastern Scotland, Northern Ireland, whilst in the well, a dip with reflection of the weather with outbreaks of rain coming and going and cloud skies. Still relatively mild here, but obviously tempered by the wind, which is gale by the end of the north and the west. So windier day on Friday. We think a drier day on Saturday, but more rain on the way on Sunday. Perhaps some lifting temperatures in Kentucky.
First of all, to the TV difference is just a little little trip inside the dark.
Oh, this.
What they saw and whether the freedom to report whatever.
It's all image usages. Markets are surging as the conflict in the Middle East shifts from one of a maritime blockade to direct strikes on energy production. What does it mean for oil prices, supply chains, and inflation? For the latest market reaction and expert analysis, join us live here on BBC News.
Economies around the world are feeling the impact of the war in the Middle East. It's disrupted business everywhere. The World Trade Organization is there to regulate global trade, while handing over economy of tariffs, Trump, and protections. I'll speak to its Director General on Talking Business here on BBC News.
Lush of blue, that colour of nature, the seas, the sky, it's so immersive.
A lot of the country that we have here is unsatisfactory for me because it's not interested in psychologists, it's interested in how people think or feel. I'm interested in people where they grow.
You are fully in the moment, you're talking, responding in the moment to everything that's happening. And when you're doing theatre, that can change night after night. It's alive, living, breathing, acting.
I suppose for the outside world, the most visible part of the London Film Festival is the red carpet. And this year it brought out some of the biggest names in the film industry.
I think there is too little architecture in this room. Lead us visiting places that bring peace, that bring positivity.
Inspire arts and